following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Yo, Philly, how you doing? Welcome to Philadelphia Baseball, past, present, and personal. I'm Bill Kashatus, your host on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. This week, I'm pleased to have as my guest Justin Hanley, the new head of the baseball program at the William Penn Charter School, where he has been a pitching coach and associate head coach for the last 6 years. Hanley has also been involved in AAU tournament baseball, first with All-Star Baseball Academy in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and later as head of baseball operations and 16U head coach at David Miller Baseball, an AAU-affiliated program. Of course, that's just his baseball resume. Justin's real job is as a venture capitalist. I guess that's what they call you guys, with Philadelphia-based Rittenhouse Ventures. So welcome to the podcast, Justin.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
Listen, you have an extremely impressive baseball resume, which we'll get into during the podcast. But let me start by asking, where did you get your love for the game? Did it come from your family?
I would say, it's kind of split. My older brother, who's 4 years older than me, and then my grandfather, both of them, kind of, lit the fire for the love of the game within me. And, it's funny, just growing up, I grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania, and, having the Reading Phillies in, 3 miles away and just going to those games. And I actually became a bat boy when I was a freshman in high school there. So, it was kind of hard to avoid, baseball growing up. So, so it was ever since I could probably say 5, 6 years old, it's just been around the game and it's been really, it's been embedded in my fiber and who I am today.
Oh, I can see where the love developed just from Reading Municipal Stadium. That's a wonderful place. In fact, now that the Phillies are just really rebuilding, I prefer to go to Reading and watch the up and coming talent. So
Bill, it's so refreshing to hear you refer to Municipal Stadium, because I think it's been about 10 different names since Municipal Stadium. But us, Reading citizens, we still call it Municipal Stadium, and still call them the Reading Phillies. I think they're the Fighting Phils now, but it's refreshing to hear that people referring to the old Municipal Stadium.
That dates me too, because I started going to games there when the Phillies, the current the 1980 World Champions, when those guys were starting there. So I was going in the 70s.
Yeah.
You played your high school baseball in Wyomissing, right?
Yep.
Which is that's Berks County, right? Which is
Berks County. Exactly. Yes.
That's some pretty good baseball there. My son Peter, who you coached at Penn Charter, played tournament ball with the Grand Slam Blue Rocks out of Reading. Sure. And many of his teammates came out of that area. Is that the same kind of hotbed that Bucks County has developed, and Chester County, I guess, to a lesser degree? Where are you getting all that talent from?
Yeah, it's Berks County has been and always will be kind of a football town or a football district, but it's baseball has definitely been either second or third, but with basketball being right there. But just the fact that it's not the biggest county, but there's about 25 high schools, and all of them fielding varsity teams, and it's not the hotbed that Philadelphia and the greater Philadelphia area are, but every team had 3 or 4 really good players, and and these are kids that growing up, it's not like it is today where kids started to specialize. Back when I was playing, every player played 3 sports, so you had some familiarity with kids on the other teams, and that kind of sparked the rivalry, the fun stuff. So, but yeah, it's always had and I do, I think the Reading Phillies can take some credit for that. They self-proclaimed in a marketing rebrand a few years ago. They call it Baseball Town, but all kidding aside, it is kind of baseball has always kind of been rooted in in the town's culture.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was the name of your high school? Wyomissing?
Yeah, Wyomissing Area High School. Yep. So we were a small double A school. We kind of sit in the shadows of Wilson. So there's the three big 6A schools. It's Reading High, Wilson, and then there's Governor Mifflin. So, those three schools always, obviously from a talent pool standpoint, was a little deeper. But, my high school was definitely the big football school. But, baseball, we had some pretty good players come through there. And, our head coach was a guy named Bob Wolfram. And, he's still the varsity football coach there, Pennsylvania Hall of Fame guy. So, a guy who kind of commanded respect when he stepped in the dugout. And I was joking with one of my players the other day that, I was talking about my high school days, and I'm still terrified of my high school coach. From a respect standpoint, But it's funny. So, I was pretty fortunate to play there and kind of come out of a small school like that, and get the attention of some college coaches back then. And because, like I said, it's definitely a football school, so to have baseball, basketball players come out of there was kind of at that time, kind of not the norm,
Well, you matriculated to one of my favorite schools, a school that's near and dear to my heart because I taught there for, I guess, 7 years, and my wife teaches chemistry there now, and our youngest son, who is autistic, swims for the Rammies club, which comes out of Westchester University. And you were there between 2002 and 2005, 4-year starter at Westchester, co-captain of the team in your senior year. And that, if I'm remembering correct, that time period was a renaissance for the Golden Rams because they had really kind of fallen on some hard times in the 1990s. I mean, they had I forget the name of the coach, but he was a legend, and I guess he retired, and they were rebuilding.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you were part of that renaissance. In your junior year, you were part of a staff that finished first in the nation in ERA. And during those 4 years, WCU set school records for victories and competed in many NCAA Division II championships.
Yeah.
Am I correct about that? Was that a rebuilding process during that time?
Absolutely. I think, don't quote me on the year, but either 1999 or 2000, up until that point, Westchester baseball was Division I.
Right.
And the last year of Division I status, I think they went 4-51, something, just something mind-blowingly bad. So then they dropped down to D2 and enrolled in that state system. And the coach they hired then was a guy named Chris Calciano, and a guy who I owe everything where I am to Chris. He came in 2001, and his first recruiting class for that 2002 class was my class, a group of about 10 of us and 6 or 7 of us from Berks County, and we kind of came in there as freshmen. And it's kind of funny, my coaching philosophy now is, if you can play, I don't care what grade you're in. If you're a freshman and you can play, you're going to play play varsity. And I got that from him because he brought us in, and he's like, listen, these are my guys, and if we're going to turn this program around, we're going to have to do things kind of unconventional way. And we bought in, hook, line, and sinker pretty quick. And our first 3 years, we won 30 games. School had never done that. We won 35 the next year, 40 the next year, and so just making these deep runs in the NCAA tournament. And, unfortunately, my senior year, or fortunately for Chris, just for the fact that he was able to turn around a program like that, he was noticed by some bigger, better programs, and he took the head coach job down at Georgia State. And certainly don't knock him for that. And then so it was really pretty much 100% him turning the Westchester baseball program around. And he's now a scout with the Cleveland Indians, so I'm glad I get to bump into him every spring, and he'll be coming out to 2 Pennsylvania games this year. So but yeah, it's just coming out of Westchester, and the fact that they've won 2 national championships in the last 5 years is something we're all the alumni are very proud about. So, but
I'd
I like to think that we had something to do with that turnaround, but these kids, the teams that they've been turning out, the last 5-6 years, they run it like a Division I program, so it's really cool to see.
What other alternatives did you have going to college? I mean, what other schools were looking at you?
So what's funny is I was recruited by Westchester out of high school, and my first semester I actually went down south. I went to a Division II school in Tennessee called Tusculum College, and it was a decision that obviously, looking back, it was a decision I should not have made, but I was a 17-year-old stupid kid, and they threw a lot of money at me, and so long story bearable, I go down there, and they were a top 25 team, and I show up, and I'm one of 12 left-handed pitchers. They had a JV team, and it was I don't want to say they over-recruited, but I was one of 50 players on the team, so I knew really quickly that I wasn't going to be happy there, and so within about 3 or 4 weeks, I let the coach know I was going to transfer, and I called Coach Calciano at Westchester, and he said, "Listen, man, come on in here in January, and you're on the team." So, I had a brief stint down south, and but the fact that Westchester, kind of embraced me with open arms was, very fortunate. But at that time, coming out of high school, recruiting back then isn't what it is now with social media and recruiting sites, and I literally my recruiting tool was copies of VHS tapes of me pitching. So wow. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but I remember my mom and dad, was driving to the post office and dropping these, massive manila folders in the mail with VHS tapes and, kind of crossing our fingers, But at the time, Temple, had their program still going back then, and that was a school I was looking at. But at the time, I thought I was making the right decision going down to Tennessee, but it's just a different brand of baseball down there, and I knew pretty quickly that I needed to come back home. So,
well, you did very well at Westchester. Did you have the opportunity to go pro afterwards?
So my senior year, I started to get some attention, and again, I'm gonna date myself. So after our last home series, a scout for the Washington Nationals. It was the first year at the Nationals. He comes over and he hands me an envelope, and it's on Montreal Expo stationery. So he said it was an invite to their pre-draft workout. But I went down there, had a good time outside of Alexandria, Virginia, or Potomac, Maryland is where it was actually. And, just a pre-draft workout for them, but it came down. I just wasn't good enough. But it was cool to see the caliber of players that really kind of what it takes to get to that level, and just I threw hard, but I didn't throw all my pitches for strikes, and that's where you got to be a professional baseball player. But I certainly don't have any regrets, but I'm honest with with myself, and to look at some of the players that were at the workout, I knew that they were kind of on that next level.
It's interesting you mentioned your experience with the Nationals, because one of your contemporaries, a friend of mine, Randy Maurer, who's over at Germantown Friends School, same experience. Exactly. He came out of St. Joe's. But, now he and was a pitcher. And same kind of story. And he just got the job, I guess this was last year, because Gunn moved on from.
He's over at Lower Merion now, yep.
Is you Lower Merion? Okay.
Yep.
I know that you pitched in the Delco for the Aston Knights, and historically the Delco has been one of the better semi-pro leagues in the middle states region. Did you start pitching for them when you were in college, or did that come after?
So when I was in college, I played, bounced around different summer leagues, and then my first 2 years out of school, I still wanted to play a little bit, and I was still living in Westchester, so I played in the Westchester Adult League. Another competitive league, and then once I moved into Philly, I met some buddies who, one of my good friends is the head coach at Malvern Prep, and he was playing for Aston at the time, and he said, "Hey, if you want to throw, show up twice a week, get your 2 starts, and So I did that, for a few summers. Just met the team. They're awesome guys. So I just had a blast playing with them. And I played with them up until about 3-4 years ago. And then when I have 2 kids came, it's like, summer baseball's kind of over. So
yeah, you were actually very kind to hook up Peter with them, and he caught for them for 2 summers. And Aspen was a pretty interesting group of characters, or at least when Peter was there. I mean, there was one relief pitcher who would take an occasional drag on a cigarette when he was warming up. Another player prided himself as an ex-con. I mean, and there was one guy who just loved to get thrown out of games. I mean, that was his entire purpose of being there. But, generally speaking, the guys were very talented players, and they were really fun to watch and just to listen to.
It was a cool mix of, former college players, and then every night, we had about 3 or 4, kids in Peter's situation, recent high school graduates, kids moving on to college, and who would kind of come and get their at-bats in the league where, guys that can still throw, and they know how to pitch. So it's pretty invaluable for kids like that, the 18, 19-year-olds to be around a dugout with a cast of characters like that and kind of, kind of taste of what the next level will be like.
Yeah, it really was. It was a really fun time, and as it turned out, the last couple of years I got to watch him play baseball. You began coaching at Penn Charter in 2013, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so
during your time there, you've been very successful. Your pitching staff's finished multiple times among the leaders in ERA and WHIP in southeastern Pennsylvania. And, of course, we all know that the players receive the credit when they win and the coach gets the blame when they lose. But I think in your case it's probably a 50-50 proposition because you've certainly had some impressive pitchers. I mean, immediately the names that come to mind are T.J. Pagan, Matt Gorman, Harrison Timberlake, Mike Ciani. Joe Lancelotti, I think, came from LaSalle, so he was pretty much developed by the time he came to Penn Charter, right?
So we actually had Joey as a freshman. So in 2013, he was a freshman for us. The 30-second background. So when I first started there, we had Joey, and then we had a kid named Nolan Jones who then transferred to Holy Ghost and was 2 years ago was a 2nd-round pick by the Indians and is now
Cleveland Indians, right?
Yeah, just doing really well. But so back to Joey, we had him as a freshman, and he was a kid that lived up in the Ben-Salem area, and doing that out 45 minutes to an hour drive to school every morning kind of wore on them as a family. And at the time, they decided to, it was the best interest of the family to pull him and send him to Archbishop Wood, where, he went and, 3-time Catholic League Player of the Year and, Philadelphia Inquirer Player of the Year. And, but the point of that is when he transferred to Wood, he repeated 9th grade. So after his junior year, he had no more PIAA eligibility. So he still had 1 year of high school. So, he came back to us, and obviously, we had open arms for him. We always kept in contact with him, just a great kid, great family. And he came in last year and had the best high school season I've ever seen out of, not only a pitcher, but a position player. I think he went 8-1 he gave up 2 earned runs all year, hit 15 home runs, batted, 500. So the kid was lights out. So, but yeah, so I didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah, we had Joey briefly, and then he spent 3 years over at Wood until we got him back. So, but yeah, I've been blessed with some very, very talented pitchers.
Mm-hmm. But again, I remember when Matty Gorman came in. He was pretty raw. So was Harrison, and you did a really nice job with those guys. Where are those guys now? Where are they going to school?
Sure. So Matt is down at he's at Hartford Community College, and Matt was he was a high academic kid, but he knows he can play Division I baseball, and I agree. But he had some labrum problems his senior year. He did pitch and had a great senior year, and then in that summer, something just didn't feel right. So, he just had surgery, very successful surgery, and he's kind of on that path. So, He is at Hartford Community College outside of Baltimore, and will do his 2 years there. And then it's the same path that TJ Pagan took, and TJ is now the closer at Pitt. And I could see something very similar for Matthew coming out of Hartford. Grades are never an issue for him, so and having that Penn Charter seal on your diploma definitely helps too. So I'm interested to see where he'll end up. And then Harrison, he did a post-grad year down at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, and kind of develop his game a little more. And he's now a freshman pitcher at Georgia Southwestern, pretty competitive D2 program down there. I think they're in the Peach Belt Conference, and he's doing really well. It's early into his freshman year, but I think he's got about 10, 15 innings. So, he's he and Matthew are kind of kids that they weren't chasing that Division I scholarship right out of high school. They kind of had a path and, had a plan, and they stuck to it. So it's all coming to fruition for them. So it's pretty neat to see.
Now, did you have all three Ciani brothers?
I have them all right now.
Right.
So Michael's the senior. Michael's senior center fielder. Obviously, he's the best high school player I've ever seen. Just 5-tool kid. He can do it all, and incredibly humble. And that that's probably the best personality trait. I would say with him. It's it's funny. We went down to Florida last year, and there were kids coming up asking for autographs. Opposing players. So it's like, how the heck do you know about this kid? And it's all through social media, and none of that is Michael's doing. He's very humble, and it's just it's like coaching a professional baseball player right now, anyway. So, and then his brother Sam, right fielder, is a Duke University commit, and then their freshman brother Jake. Jake is he's kind of the clown of the bunch. He's definitely got the funny personality and just a great kid. So, but yeah, to have all three of those kids together right now is pretty special. So I promise them at least one time this year I'll get because Jake's a left fielder, Michael's center fielder, and Sammy's in right. So at some point this year I'll get all three of them out there at one time.
And all Ciani outfield. Wow.
Yeah, isn't that all lefties too?
Yep.
Lefties. Yep.
The Quakers have as you know, a very rich baseball tradition. They've won 35 Interact baseball championships, and that dates back to 1930. Two of those titles came more recently in 2014 and 2017. And that 2017 team posted a 26-2 record, N2 record, but lost. I was at that game, sadly, but lost to Springside, Chestnut Hill in the PAISSAA state semifinals. It just seemed like Dave Miller could not defeat his alma mater.
That's true.
This year's squad enters the season at number 41 in the Perfect Game website top 50 national rankings, and Penn Charter is the highest-ranked high school team in the Northeast region, which includes 9 states in both the New England and Middle Atlantic states. Aren't those some pretty high expectations for a team that lost 11 players from last year?
It is, and I was the first one to tell the current crop of players that they really haven't earned anything. That number 41 ranking is 98% of it has to do with last year's team, and the remaining 2% has to do with Michael Ciani still being on the team. So it's and they get that, and they know that they've got to work and kind of put their own stamp on the program. Obviously last year was just probably the most fun I've ever had coaching, and just to see, we called it when Dave and I would, he'd hand me his lineup card every day and say, hey, what do you think of this? We joked and we called it a video game lineup. When your 9-hitter is now a freshman center fielder, at Rutgers, that's pretty impressive. So, and of those 11 I think we had 14 seniors overall, and 11 of them are now playing college ball. That's probably what the thing you take the most pride in as a coach, to see those kids, because our job as coaches, at least our philosophy has always been to kind of prepare the kids for the college game. Let them know, hey, it's a job in college. It's not so much fun like it is in high school. you got to treat it like a job. You're definitely at baseball way more than you're at class. So it's how do you handle that? And, when you see 11 of your former players now playing college ball and doing it, pretty successfully, it's hard not to look back with a smile on your face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it speaks very highly of the program. It really does.
But with that, I'm sorry, Bill. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say that, the program really promotes itself.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of exposure. You have a lot of, easily local exposure, state exposure, and then when you're talking about a player like Mike Ciani, you even have some national exposure.
Exactly.
The difficult thing there, and I know because I've been through it, not as much with baseball as with soccer when I was there, is, there's a lot of pressure, particularly in the junior and senior years, to capture the attention of a college recruiter and or a pro scout, and especially at a place like Penn Charter with such a rich baseball tradition. I also know that Division I recruiters in particular make promises that they can't keep, among them scholarship money. At the D1 level, the head coach only has 11.7 full scholarships. At the D2 level, there are 9 full scholarships per team. NAIA schools have 12 scholarships, and fully funded junior colleges can offer as many as 24 scholarships. But the coaches divide those scholarships up any way they choose. And you're never told that there are nearly 60,000 college baseball players who are competing for those scholarships year in and year out. So as the recruitment process unfolds, a truly exceptional athlete might find himself having to choose between MLB's amateur draft and division program. Guy like, Mike Ciani. Now, we're talking about a rarefied group here. We're talking about 0.5% of the 490,000 some high school baseball players in the country who fit into that category. And Penn Charter has been blessed to have, quite a number of those, over the last decade or so.
It's pretty wild, yeah.
In addition to that, there are pressures and expectations coming from recruiters, parents, high school coaches, teammates on what you should do with your future.
Exactly.
So, you've already talked a little bit about your own recruitment process and how you navigated some of the challenges. What's some of the best advice that you could give to these kids that you're coaching now and their parents, which is just as important?
Yeah, so, and, during your question, you had mentioned that, especially with soccer, the junior and senior year are probably the most important. Well, with baseball, it has shifted, in my opinion, negatively to your sophomore year is probably the most, or your sophomore summer. And, with kids, the cool thing to do nowadays is to commit to a college program by your 10th grade year. And we've seen, in my 6 years at Penn Charter, we've seen kids make mistakes from that standpoint. Kids that have committed to programs that, at the time, it may have looked like it would have panned out, but ended up being a complete, disaster as far as, from a fit standpoint. And the kids at the time, they don't understand that college coaches are looking at you 3-4 years down the road, not what you're currently at. And those kids kind of get complacent and think, hey, my 85-mile-per-hour fastball as a 10th grader is gonna get me to Miami or USC or wherever. It just doesn't work like that. And when a kid gets a verbal commit, they don't understand that commitment is only worth it's worth nothing, because on the flip side, a college coach could easily rescind that offer, and we've seen that happen. So from an advice standpoint, we just let these kids tell them to be a little more patient. I know there are outside influences, parents, travel ball coaches, and from a high school coach standpoint, I assume I'm probably third on the on the list of people that the kid would take advice from. When you're paying, when parents are paying upwards of $5,000 to $10,000 to play summer ball, you're going to listen to that guy more than you will to me. But I look at it like I have skin in the game, and my that kid's future is in my best interest, and I take that to heart. So I just tell these kids to be patient. The schools will be there, and you've got to find the right fit. One thing we've seen with our 2017 class is 3 or 4 D, kind of that lower tier D1 or D2, D3, and every single one of those kids is not only playing as freshmen, but making are their impact players. Whereas we've had a handful over the years that have set their sights on these top 25 programs and probably don't play till their junior, senior year, and they're miserable. So, and you hate to see that, but we can. So then we can go to players now and say, listen, there's a precedence here. Look at these kids. Learn from their mistakes. Learn from my mistake. Of choosing a program and following the money. So, and they're smart. They have a ton of information. Obviously, me just being one source of that, but I think the decisions these kids are making nowadays are a little more, stable, a little more calculated, if you will. But again, you're right. It's just there's so much pressure from so many, either outside sources. And I was saying to a parent the other day that kids nowadays are forced to grow up so much faster than I was growing up. I just can't imagine being an 18-year-old kid and, trying to make that decision that Michael Ciani's going to make in 3 months from now. So, thinking about senior week or whatever. So,
right.
But yeah, these kids, they're, like I said, they're forced to grow up a little faster nowadays. And, they just have to be able to sit down as, with their family or with their coaches and kind of make the best decision for them. Not saying it's always that best decision isn't always made, but I think they definitely have the information there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. The whole outlook, at least with the players you're seeing, is more realistic than it was even 5 years ago. Because I know the game, particularly that college recruiters play,
Sure.
and they try to get an oral commitment to get you off the market, and they just put you on their list, and then they're going to find someone better, and you just keep dropping down till you fall off the list.
Exactly.
Kid I coached in tournament ball and Legion, guy by the name of Brendan Little, who came out of Conestoga High School, #1 draft pick of the Cubs. UNC did that to him, and he just flamed out of that program within 1 year's time. He was lucky that he landed down in South Florida University, where Don Robinson, corrected this fallacy that velocity is everything, and control doesn't mean as much.
Mm-hmm.
And he corrected him. He spent 2 summers out at Cape Cod, had another wonderful coach out there, and now he's with the Cubs. But perfect example of someone who was just yanked around by the D1 system. And I've gotten to the point where unless I really see somebody who I really think in the junior year, not before, but in the junior year, because that's when I think you can begin to start projecting.
Exactly.
And I think that's even early. But I've gotten to the point where, if I have a kid who's intelligent, can break that 21 on the SATs, I'm going to send him to Haverford College, where a Division III school, where they're going to get a wonderful education, where they have a pipeline to the MLB right now because they've got more than a dozen guys who are in MLB front offices throughout, the league, and they're starting now to take pitchers because of that pipeline. And it's easier to draft a pitcher out of Division III than any other position. And right now, over the last couple of years, Steve Riding, I guess, is with Cincinnati, and Tommy Burgeons, who was drafted by the Dodgers, but now is in Reading. So there's a way to make it there too. And I really believe in that. And if it doesn't work, you have a degree to fall back on. Whereas what I've been seeing, particularly with tournament players and their parents, baseball is everything. And they just jump from one school, to another until they can play. And that's just not right. It's just not right. The priorities are not right there. Guy like Ciani, guy like Lancelotti, different story. But for the majority of these kids, I just, it really, I love coaching Class A baseball right now out here in the boondocks near Williamsport, because these kids, they just want to get a college education. None of them are dreaming about the next step. And they're playing baseball just like they play the other sports. They're three-sport athletes because they have fun and they want to be around their friends. And you cannot imagine how inspiring that is for me to really be allowed to be a teacher and a coach, because I've seen the other, and I don't fit in that anymore. I just don't. But I am glad to hear what you're saying, because I thought when I was in the Interact, it was the outlook on this stuff was very unrealistic. Let me ask you. Last several years, you've been an assistant coach for the Interact Independent League All-Stars in the Carpenter Cup Classic. That tournament is listeners may or may not know, named for the Carpenter family who owned the Phillies from the 1940s through 1981. And that's a tournament that showcases the best high school baseball talent in the tri-state area. Tell us about some of the most exceptional players you've seen compete in that classic.
What's funny is, a name you just mentioned, Brandon Little. He was my first year coach, and we got our first game. We're matched up against them, and he's throwing against us. So it was pretty awesome to see that kid throw. He only threw 2 innings, but that was a pretty wild 15, 20 pitches he threw. So it was pretty neat to see that kid. But the Interact team, our league is just to give the listeners a 30-second background. It's a league of 6, high academic private institutions, and we're not restricted by the state rules, so we are allowed to recruit. So our league is probably the most deep and most competitive league in the state, in my opinion. Each roster has 6 to 7 college commits already, and if you're playing on a team like that, you have the goals of playing college baseball. So with that, the Interact Independent All-Stars, the rosters are always pretty stacked every year. Now, the results don't always kind of, dictate that, but it's funny because we have about 30 kids rostered, and some kids are leaving for senior week, so we never have that consistent rotation of players. And you do have kids that kind of opt out of playing because they're getting ready for travel ball, and which I kind of understand, but it'd be nice to kind of get it back to the roots of the tournament and play with a little more pride from the Interact standpoint, where you definitely have the best players playing every year and competing against the different counties of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. So, but yeah, it is neat just to see some of the kids that we've played against over the years, and some Division I pitchers that have really given us battles, and to have them on the same side as us for those 2 weeks during the Carpenter Cup is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Got one more question for you, Justin. In addition to all your baseball activities, you also work for a living. I mean, a full-time job with Rittenhouse Ventures. You're also a husband, and now I guess the father of, did you say 2 or 3 children?
2.
Wow.
It feels like 3 sometimes. It's just it's a nut house.
Yeah, well, they say with 1 child, half of all your free time's gone. With 2, all of it's gone. So the third doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
But your involvement then, with all that on your plate, your involvement at Penn Charter is really a labor of love. How has the school treated you?
Oh, they couldn't have treated me any better. When when Coach Miller was offered the head coach of LaSalle job in June, and he took that, and Dr. Ford at Penn Charter offered me the head coaching job there. It was a no-brainer. I mean, I love the school, love the program, and obviously love the kids. That the kids are the probably the best part about all of it. It was an absolute no-brainer for me to step in there, and the school was very happy to hear that. So, we've got some exciting things going on. Obviously, we're very young. The downside of having a team like last year is that, my entire pitching staff graduated. So the cool thing about that is I've got this ball of clay of 5 or 6 freshman pitchers that, I've got a few years to kind of work with them. And, I think they could be as good as the staff last year. So, just super, super thrilled to be at Penn Charter. And, I think the future is bright from a baseball standpoint.
Well, I know that you were the best coach that my son had when he was at Penn Charter, and one of the very best baseball coaches he ever had, and that's because you're not only a very good teacher, but you care. So Penn Charter is very, very lucky to have you. Thanks for being with us, Justin.
Absolutely. I just want to say Peter was one of my favorites, and to see he wrote that very moving editorial in the Inquirer, I guess about a year ago. That was pretty awesome to see. So, it sounds like he's doing very well. And please tell him I asked for him, will you?
No, definitely will. Definitely will. And thank you, Philly fans, for tuning in. See you next week for another podcast of Philadelphia Baseball, Past, Present, and Personal. This is Bill Kashatus, rounding third and heading home on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.